to Biztech's Women in Leadership show. Our guest for today is Jessie Juan. She's the founder and partner at Quantium. Now, Quantium is the next generation fund and portfolio management platform that's designed for modern private market managers. Now, to tell us more, Jessie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, and pleased to be invited. Yes, we are a software service provider. We focus purely on private markets, and really pleased to be here today and share our journeys with you and in the audience.
Now, could you tell us about your experience as an LP and what you made, what decisions you made in order to start the company?
Sure. So prior to Quantium, I had been in an LP role for over 10 plus years. So I was with the Swiss headquartered firm called Partners Group. Basically, I have been, overseeing their investments in Asia Pacific on the investment committee and also advisory boards for several leading partnerships here in the region. And really seeing the ups and downs of the industry and also how GP transforming from purely focusing on investing and then going through more transformations to focus on IR services and how technology could then really play a vital role in that aspect. And I think for that, Partners Group has really been at the forefront in terms of digitalizing the operations and able to raise capitals and also provide transparencies to the investor. And so it's really my experience, being an LP, understanding how investors look at track records, look at investments, how to slice and dice data, and really bridging that gap, because I think a lot of times these fund managers, they want to hear from the investors, how could they deliver their message better to their prospects or even existing LPs. And I think through that conversation, I felt that technology could play a role, and there weren't great options out there. And myself, not only myself, but also our team came from the industry. We should really start something, and that's how we started Quantium.
Okay, so what are the gaps that you're really trying to solve here, especially because they're different? There's been an explosion of the venture capital and private equity industry in the last decade. And I think a lot of people are still using Excel and Airtable to manage the business. Tell us a little bit more.
Right. So, I mean, it's for, fund managers that are relatively new, young. They will manage their data on Excel. And you'll be surprised, even fund managers that's, with 10 plus years of operation, historically, they just haven't focused on that. And I think they did a lot of outsourcing to fund administrator. And, it's not about whether you're young or how many years of operations you've been in. And I think the reason is really because it's not that people didn't want to look for technology. People had looked at technology, but they couldn't find good options out there. In the older days, people think about technology more as a data warehouse. So how can they use technology to store data? And there came Power BI, and then they think about how do I connect to some analytical tools. But I mean, let's be honest, right? So I was also in an investment role. People are busy with their daily lives and focusing on chasing after good deals. They just don't have time to look into that. And that is a big investment and big change, not only dollar wise, but really the team, the resource, the way they operate. But it's going to be better for the future. And basically, so we saw that coming, and we think about what the legacy system were good at, but also what they lack. At the same time, I think, as you mentioned, there are a lot of more modern technology now in the space. However, a lot of the more modern, we call it the module specialists, or some people call it a point of solutions. They are more focused on purely, let's say, certain segment, CRM, pipeline management, or purely an investor portal. However, what we do is different. So we are integrated in terms of end-to-end. At the same time, I think we tackle the hardcore operations of the fund. So, we love to talk about waterfall. We love to talk about levered versus unlevered returns. We can debate all along, what would be the best structures in terms of setting out a fund. What's the benefits of having SPVs? What would be the best reporting, templates, or IR services. And that's the thing that I think the modern technologies don't purely or fully understand. They focus a lot purely on the technology. And I think whereas the legacy system, because of the way their technology was built, decades ago, their hands are tied. And so the fact that we came from the industry, we understand the pain point, and we were able to leverage newer technology. I think that really put us in a good position to really build the best-in-class product for the future.
Okay, so tell us about the Quantium story so far. Where are you, what's your journey like and where are you at today?
Right. So we started in Singapore in 2016. In the early days, we also didn't know everything, what we need to do. I think we were very clear that we didn't want to white label or outsource any development. Even though I think some people would tell you that may be a faster way to get the product on the ground and up and running. But we didn't feel that was the right thing to do. So we said that, and luckily we actually met really good partners on the technology side. And so we said that we're going to build the product on our own on day one. We are going to build a team and invest a team in-house on day one. And so, it started from very simple single fund management. Now, a lot of our clients are actually in a larger scales, and then they actually use it not only for single fund reporting, they use it for kind of a bird eye view aggregation. So it's easier for the partners, the managers, the COOs to know all the underlying positions and be able to bring an iPad when they meet with an investor and just click on things to show how the fund is doing. And so, today we have onboarded more than 300 clients. Now, many of them are leading names in the regions, but also we've got also clients coverage in Europe. And most recently, I believe in Africa, we also have gotten some clients in Africa as well. And so we are pretty excited. Definitely, I think there is still a long way to go. And we continue to invest, in the R&Ds of the product.
And how have you been able to get such a wide geographical spread? Is your go-to-market strategy really working with partners in different geographical regions?
Yeah, so there are a few different things that we do. I think one is really, clients of ours here, let's say in Asia, they maybe, have international coverage. Let's say they have teams in the US or they have teams in Europe. They brought us into that region, and through referral and recommendation, and other people get to know us. Yesterday, I was on a call with a prospect client from Denmark. They say they have heard about us, and then they just reach out. They wanted to know more about Quantium. And, we also have been working with consultants. So I think in the more developed market, let's say in the US or in Europe, there are dedicated consultants. They help fund managers to select the best-in-class softwares, for implementations and all that. So we're also in the process of working with a leading large name in Europe at the moment. And then we also have partners with fund administrators. As you know, Quantium can do the full administrations for funds. And therefore, some fund administrator, they actually came to us and then use our Quantium product to do their service. And through that, we are also able to then further distribute, let's say, the portfolio management module and make it really a full-blown, full-swing offering to the end clients. So there are many ways that we actually, work in order to, bring this product to more people out there that are really not satisfied with, legacy systems or, really finding solutions that really can help them, fund end to end.
Now, Jesse, it sounds really interesting because one of the key things, obviously, is your product has reached a stage of maturity where, and you've got enough of a client base where it seems to be that word of mouth is one of the key ways that you're acquiring new customers.
That's certainly one way. So I think for us, because it's enterprise, because I think we focus a lot on high touch. We making sure that we onboard our clients well, we service our clients well. And you will find it interesting because half of our team actually came from professional service. So unlike traditional so-called IT service provider, there you are thinking maybe some guys in their sweaty T-shirt and then they come and fix your hardware. It's completely different. So many of us actually came from I myself, but also my other team members, the big fours or consulting firms, and they really understand how professional firms like to deal with professional firms, right? So I think things from presentations, making sure we set the right milestones, making sure every step of the implementation, even the life cycle of the clients, how can we not only offer a product, which is the software, but also advise on the practices that we see to these clients? Because private equity or private markets, the operation is somewhat closed door. A lot of times people are curious what the other funds are doing. How can I do better? And similarly, when I was an LP on the advisory board, the best fund manager in terms of performance-wise, they will come and ask you, are we doing things correctly? Is there better things that we can do and improve in our operations? And I think we have seen so many funds practices, and our team is knowledgeable and able to share, what are the different ways of doing things. And I think the clients, they can understand, and then they can say, well, that's great. You guys are not only a software, but service provider, and you actually can be a partner that I come and ask for advice.
Now, Jesse, what are some key trends that you're seeing and obviously you're in the forefront of this, transforming the fundraising and investor servicing sector?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that question, because I think this is definitely an important one, and all managers care about this topic. I will bring back to again, I think the older days, how people were thinking about fund operations. I mean, there wasn't too much thoughts about IR services, or fundraising is always every 2-3 years. There's only quarterly reports, and then people were reporting things at a fund level. It was very robotic. And when I was an LP, I experienced that. Now, I think with the pandemic and the fact that there have been, regulatory change and then market volatility, investors just demand more frequent and transparent and more individualized, interactions. And so these things are difficult to achieve. You don't have technology behind. I'll give you an example. For instance, an investor, they have invested with a fund manager through different vehicles, in fund 2, fund 3, fund 5, skipping fund 4 for some reason, all the various vehicles. Now, let's say the fund has 100 of LPs. The IR for him or her to actually be able to easily extract that particular LP's information, on which entities they have invested in, what is the aggregated IRR, and then what is kind of the underlying personalized exposure, is extremely difficult. However, I'm seeing the trend that, it's not now, it has been happening for the past years already, that managers are investing into the IR functions. People are having dedicated IR teams, for more complex market, let's say China, they have the IR team for renminbi market, and then they have IR team for the US dollar LPs. And these IRs work very closely with the finance team or the portfolio team to collect information in order to, present that to the investor. And the investor sometimes can pick up a call. They just want information right now, and they have no time to wait. And so I think a lot of times, our clients, when they first came to us, they were sometimes purely looking for portfolio management solutions. And when they see that whole spectrum of offering in one platform. And they say, well, this is great because that fulfills my IR needs. And I no longer have to have these offline transfers of emails or documents. And I think it's really the way forward that IR will become more and more of an important functions to sustain a GP operations. Obviously, investments wise, there is going to be up and downs throughout different cycle. However, I think what the GP can do, macro side you can control, but at least you can invest in your IR team, invest in your operations to make sure that even at the downtime, you can provide that transparency to your investor so that they can rest assured that their monies are in good hands. And I think technology will play a vital role going forward and even more important role going forward.
I think, Jessie, and I have a key takeaway from just what you just said, the ability to respond to your investor much, much more quickly. That's really, I think, a key takeaway from the solutions that companies like you provide.
Yeah, no, totally. I think thank you for picking that up.
Now, Jessie, I want to now move and zoom in on you. You went from an LP to an entrepreneur. Walk us through that journey and what was that switch like?
Right. So when I first started, I think it wasn't easy, but certainly I think I felt that I had all this, great networks and knowledge of how the market operates. And at the same time, I had, our co-founders who are, also seeing the gap. Initially, when I left my older firm, Partners Group, there were consideration of should I go back to become an LP at some different firms? It's much higher level, and on the buy side, it's much more comfortable. But certainly, I find that building a business, it really gives me the opportunity to really understand every single details of a business operations. And there are difficult times, and again, we also have gone through the COVID period. In the past 6 years of operation, half of that time was during COVID. But I think very luckily, technology, there's no border. We actually grew more than 80% in the last 2 years during COVID time. And so I think, the fact that it really gives me a lot of fulfillment to be able to work with really smart people and really building a meaningful product and solving a real problem in the real world. It's very fulfilling, and I never look back.
Now, Jessie, you're a woman in a largely male-dominated field, whether it's fund management and also in technology. Now, what advice would you like to impart to women who are in their career journey at various stages, whether they are entering the workforce for the first time or perhaps really trying to juggle being a mom and a mother and a wife, and also being a child to perhaps two older children? Yeah, two older parents, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're totally correct. Well, so first, an interesting fact, more than half of our management or leadership team is actually women at Quantium. And it's not by design, it just somehow happened that way. So the head of development, she is also a woman. And our head of marketing, she's also a woman. We have very capable client solutions team, they are women. And myself, I've never really felt the difference of needing to prove anything differently because I was a woman. And for me, it was just natural to be a productive member of the society. And I wanted to do things and continue to build things, regardless whether, I was single or I was a mother. Obviously, being a mother of 3, it makes things more difficult. I mean, there are times where I had to move client meetings because my kid got sick, and then I got a phone call from the school and I need to pick them up. And, we are juggling, constantly. And I think definitely women are giving more pressure in today's society, but I don't think that would be a reason to say, well, my hands are tied, there's nothing that I could do. And I think when you ask the question about, women's at different stage of their career, I would say, regardless you're a man or woman, I think when you started your career, find a good firm where, really spend time, at least give it, 2-3 years to learn the inside outs. I think nowadays, a lot of people, younger generation, they change job very fast, and they are not, able to stay in a job to see it through and really learn everything in one cycle. And I think that would be the first thing to do. And then, certainly, figuring out what you want to do for the longer term. I think starting a business is not meant for everybody, because there are times where, you just have to play so many different roles. But for me, it's certainly very fulfilling. And like I said, I have no regret. And I do encourage anybody out there that have dreams to pursue them. And so you don't look back, let's say when you are 50s and say, well, gosh, I wish I had done that. Obviously there are times that you have to sacrifice, fewer times with your children, fewer times with your parents. But that's the end of the day. That's a decision that you have to make. And I'm glad that I have made that decision.
Now, Jessie, this has been a really informative conversation. I really enjoyed our chat. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, no, I think it's really, today the technology it's advancing. There's a lot of, great talents out there. I think, it's endless possibility. And so, I think for people that are interested in business, really take on that chance and, find where the gap is. And I think you can really build a business to thrive and then to succeed. So yeah, that's really how I feel. And I wish, audience here, whoever is thinking about starting a business in the tech world, to explore and build on it.
Now, thank you very much, Jessie, for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now, we've been speaking to Jessie Juan, the co-founder and partner at Quantium. I'm Brian Fernandez. We've been watching and listening to Biztech's Women in Leadership series. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It will also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thank you very much for tuning in.